Did you know that over 60% of people admit they fear the unknown more than anything else in the world? It's not what we see that terrifies us. It's what we can't see. Tonight, we're diving into a story so chilling, so unsettling, that it might make even the bravest of souls question their courage. Are you ready to face your fear? We all love a good, scary story, right? But some tales go beyond the usual ghostly apparitions and things that go bump in the night. These are the kinds of stories that stay with you long after the lights are out, the ones that creep into your thoughts when you're alone. What you're about to hear might just be such a story, a tale so terrifying that it's been whispered about for generations. The question is, will you be able to handle it? Fear is a strange thing. It lives in the shadows, in the unexplained creaks of old floorboards, or the way your own reflection seems to linger in the mirror after you've turned away. For centuries, humans have created stories to make sense of that fear. But sometimes, those stories take on a life of their own. This is where our story begins, with the fear of the unknown. Imagine a place so shrouded in mystery that no one dares to enter. A house where the air feels heavier, the walls seem to breathe, and the whispers of those who never left still linger. For a group of teenagers in a small forgotten town, this place was more than a legend. It was a challenge. And what's more tempting to the brave or foolish than proving they have nothing to fear? But what if the stories were true? What if the unknown wasn't just a figment of their imagination, but something real, something waiting? The air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on her lungs, but Sarah didn't care. She had to know. She had to find out if the stories about the old house on Blackthorn Hill were true. For years, it had been the talk of the town, a place whispered about in classrooms, scrawled on bathroom stalls, and murmured between friends at sleepovers. Some said a family had vanished inside the house without a trace. Others claimed to hear screams from the windows at night, though the house had been abandoned for decades. Sarah wasn't afraid of ghost stories. She thought they were just that, stories, until tonight. Are you sure about this? Her best friend asked, shivering despite the warm autumn air. The two of them stood at the base of the hill, looking up at the sprawling Victorian mansion. Its silhouette loomed against the moonlight, the windows like dark, hollow eyes that stared deep into their souls. Of course, I'm sure, Sarah replied, her voice steady, though her palms were slick with sweat. We said we'd prove it, didn't we? If we don't go in, everyone's going to think we chickened out. Mia glanced back at the others, waiting at the bottom of the hill. Jake and Tyler, their so-called friends, stood by the rusty gate, laughing and egging them on. Yeah, but there's a reason no one goes in there, Mia muttered. What if something's real? Sarah rolled her eyes. You think ghosts are real? Come on, it's an old, creaky house. The scariest thing we'll find in there is probably a raccoon. But as she said it, a cold wind blew through the trees, carrying with it the faintest sound of something. Was it a whisper, or just the wind? Let's just get this over with, Sarah said, grabbing Mia's arm and starting up the hill. The closer they got to the house, the more it seemed to change. From a distance, it had looked like nothing more than an abandoned relic, falling apart under the weight of time. But now, up close, it seemed alive. The shutters hung crookedly, almost like they were tilting to watch them. The wooden boards creaked and groaned, though there was no breeze. And the front door, it stood ajar, inviting them in. That door wasn't open before, Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Probably just the wind, Sarah said, though she didn't believe it. She pushed the door open wider, and it let out a long, low moan, as if the house itself were waking up. Inside, the air was even heavier than outside, thick with the scent of mildew and something metallic, like rust or blood. The grand foyer stretched upwards into darkness, the chandelier hanging above them swaying gently, though there was no reason it should move. "Okay, we're here," Mia said quickly, her voice high-pitched. "We proved we're brave. Let's go." "Not yet," Sarah said. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. "We need proof. Come on." The beam of light cut through the shadows, revealing peeling wallpaper, a staircase covered in dust, and furniture draped in white sheets. The house was silent, except for the faint sound of their breathing. They stepped deeper inside, the floorboards groaning beneath their feet. Sarah's phone buzzed suddenly, and she nearly dropped it. She looked down at the screen. It was a text from Jake. "Running scared yet? LOL." She rolled her eyes and shoved the phone back into her pocket. "Let's check upstairs," she said, heading toward the staircase. Mia hesitated. "Do we have to?" "Come on," Sarah said. "We'll be in and out." The staircase felt like it might collapse under their weight, but they made it to the second floor. The hallway stretched out before them, lined with doors on either side. Most of them were closed, but one at the very end stood slightly open. A soft light flickered from inside, like the glow of a candle. "Do you see that?" Mia whispered, clutching Sarah's arm. "Yeah," Sarah said, her voice tight. "Let's check it out." "No, let's not," Mia started, but Sarah was already moving. The hallway seemed to stretch longer the more they walked, the air growing colder with each step. When they reached the door, Sarah hesitated. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. From inside, she could hear a faint sound, like someone humming. "Mia, do you hear that?" she asked. But when she turned, Mia was gone. "Mia!" Sarah called, her voice rising. She spun around, shining her flashlight down the hallway, but it was empty. "Mia, this isn't funny!" There was no answer. Her heart pounding, Sarah turned back to the door. The humming had stopped. Slowly, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was small and empty, except for a single chair in the center. On the chair sat a doll, its porcelain face cracked, its glass eyes staring straight at her. In its hands, it held a piece of paper. Sarah's flashlight flickered, and for a moment, she thought she saw the doll's head tilt ever so slightly. She swallowed hard and stepped closer. The paper looked old, yellowed with age, and there was something written on it in spidery handwriting. "I see you." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled back, and as she did, the doll's head snapped toward her, its mouth opening wide in a silent scream. She bolted from the room, her flashlight swinging wildly as she ran down the hallway. "Mia, Mia, where are you?" But the house was silent, except for the sound of her own footsteps. She reached the staircase and froze. The front door was gone. In its place was a solid wall, the wallpaper peeling to reveal something dark and wet beneath. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She turned and ran back down the hallway, but it wasn't the same. The doors were gone, replaced by endless walls. The house was shifting, changing, trapping her inside. "Help!" she screamed, pounding on the walls. "Someone help me!" A low, guttural laugh echoed through the house, and Sarah froze. It was coming from behind her. Slowly, she turned. At the end of the hallway stood a figure. It was tall and thin, its limbs impossibly long, its face obscured by shadows. But its eyes glowed red, piercing through the darkness. "Who? What are you?" Sarah stammered, backing away. The figure stepped closer, its movements jerky and unnatural, like a marionette on strings. As it reached out for her, its hand stretched longer and longer, the fingers curling like claws. Sarah turned and ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She didn't know where she was going. The house was a maze, twisting and turning endlessly. She could hear the thing behind her, its laughter growing louder, closer. She burst into a room and slammed the door shut behind her, leaning against it as she tried to catch her breath. The room was dark, but her flashlight revealed a mirror on the far wall. She froze when she saw her reflection. It wasn't her. The girl in the mirror looked like her, but her eyes were empty black voids. Her mouth twisted into a wide, unnatural grin. Slowly, the reflection raised a hand and waved. Sarah screamed and turned away, only to come face to face with the figure. It loomed over her, its red eyes burning into hers. "Stay," it hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. "Stay with us." Sarah stumbled back, but there was nowhere to go. The walls closed in around her, the darkness swallowing her whole. The next morning, Mia woke up at the bottom of the hill, her head pounding. She didn't remember leaving the house. She didn't remember anything after Sarah had opened that door. She sat up looking around. "Sarah," she called, her voice hoarse. There was no answer. The house on Blackthorn Hill was gone. In its place was an empty field, the grass blackened as if burned. But in the center of the field, something glinted in the morning light. Mia walked over and picked it up. It was Sarah's phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. There was one message open, written at 3:33 a.m. "Too spooky for the brave?" Mia dropped the phone and ran. But no matter how far she went, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching her. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the empty field, a low, guttural laugh echoed.